On today's video, we're going to be talking about a classic tune that features one of the greatest solos of the 80s. Hey kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Over my many years as a guitar teacher and touring musician, I've learned thousands of songs, and they've all taught me something that stuck with me and helped me along the way. Mastering tunes makes us better players, and that's why every guitarist should learn. Turn Up the Radio by Autograph, featuring the amazing Steve Lynch on guitar. Hey the kid, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Turn Up the Radio by Autograph came out the year I was born, 1984, and it's still not gotten old yet. And I can tell you that for sure because if it's old, then that makes me old, and that can't be right. It's got some iconic riffs, some really clever key changes, and an awesome solo with some really creative tapping in it. It's a real challenge, and most importantly, it's super fun, and there's a lot that we can learn from it. But you're going to learn even more from this video if you check out the super extended cut that's only available on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Sign up today even for just $1 a month. It's going to get you access to that extended ad-free cut of this video with a little bit more of everything in it, as well as hundreds of exclusive posts, downloadable tabs, backing tracks, bonus lessons, and so much more. So don't delay. Sign up today over at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. I'm also going to be putting up tabs over there for some of the parts in this song because there are some extremely bad transcriptions for this one floating around out there. And you know, because I want to make the guitar world a better place, I'm going to put those up public access for free on their own post. So even if you don't want to join my Patreon cult, which you should, you can still snag those tabs and start playing the song more better. So head on over to that Patreon page. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm going to be playing my beloved Suhr Modern White Tiger. And of course I need a tone that's ready for shreddy, so I'm playing through the Synergy 50/50 head that I got right here, and I'm using the Synergy Plexi module, which sounds amazing for those classic hot-rodded British tones. I've also got that guitar running through the Highwind Direwolf overdrive pedal, which is insanely great, one of the best boosts on the market. Now let's grab that Aquanet and get into it. One more quick thing before we get into the rest of the video. I'm once again going to be appearing at the Woodshed Guitar Experience, which is an amazing guitar camp full of festivities and jams and master classes and concerts, all kinds of amazing stuff. The artist lineup this year is absolutely bananas, and I'm very pleased to be part of it as an instructor and hoster of the jams and all kinds of other good stuff. If you guys want to be a part of the fun, be sure to register today over on this website and use promo code UncleBen200 for 200 smackers off your admission fee. I'll see you guys at the shed. For today's video, I've got my Gortar tuned down 1/2 step, although the record is kind of in between standard and a 1/2 step down. It's like a little bit low for standard, a little bit high for E flat. Probably due to some mischief that happened in the mastering process, but just to make stuff easier, I'm just tuned down to E flat today. At the start of the song, we're treated to one of those signature 80s isms, the sound of a static bass note with some chord triads being superimposed on top of it. It sounds like this. The power of the pedal tone. I've got a whole video about that sound here on my channel you can check out. But you can kind of trace the lineage of this through rock history, because I'm sure Autograph probably got it from Van Halen, right? Think about songs like Running with the Devil, where Michael Anthony has that static E-flat bass note, and Eddie's playing those chord triads on top. But of course, Van Halen didn't invent that. They probably got it from AC/DC. A lot of their tunes feature a static bass note and chord change going on top of it. And who knows who they got it from. This is a long-standing rock tradition, and this is a great example of how cool it can sound. So the bass here is just playing G, and we have those keyboard chords on top of that, which reflect a G major, C major, F major, and B flat up top. Now, whenever we play this in my hair metal tribute band Skankbanger, yes, we are very classy, I'm playing those parts on guitar, and to mimic that kind of synth sound, I usually like to put on like a chorus pedal, and I'll play those with volume swells like this. You can see here how I'm starting off with the volume knob all the way down and striking the strings, and then just rolling the volume up. Works even better if you have a volume pedal. If you learn that part, you can check out the harmony that's going on when we superimpose those chord triads over a static bass note. Now, whenever we play that G triad, that low G bass note is sounding out as the root, of course. When we go to the C triad, that G no longer sounds like a root, it sounds like a fifth to a C chord. Now over the F triad, there's a couple different ways you could look at this. You could say to an F triad, a G is a 9, or you could even say that this is a big extension of like a G11 chord, also known as the 70s chord to you Paul Gilbert enthusiasts. The chord that's in like every Hall & Oates song. And then over the B flat, this is kind of an ambiguous one, because to B flat, G is a 6, major 6. So that's kind of an unusual bass note to hear there. Really cool. And you can always learn the most about this stuff when you analyze it from the harmonic perspective like that. Learn that harmony, you're gonna learn the secrets of the Guitarminati universe. So over that section, Steve plays this kind of controlled chaos that I was hoping going into this video was completely randomized, and I could just tell you guys, just make a bunch of weird noises with the bar and harmonics and stuff. Turns out it's actually very orchestrated, because I watched a bunch of live videos and he plays it like the same way every time. He uses a ton of different bar tricks and tapping ideas in really quick succession here, and there's a lot you can learn from this. Check it out. You got some of those classic harmonic squeals. Dip the bar, pluck the string with the left hand, and sound out a harmonic with the underside of your ring finger. He does this really cool thing that reminds me of the intro of I Ran by Flock of Seagulls. He's kind of taking the ass end of the pick and bouncing in between the high strings as he travels down the neck. Be sure to apply a little bit of pressure here so you can kind of knock against the frets and get some notes out of them. The lick after this one is really interesting, because I just kind of assumed he was doing random taps and slides up the neck, but it's actually very controlled. Steve does a lot of tapping inside of the minor pentatonic scale, and I remember first learning about this from his instructional video that he did way back in the day. You can find it here on YouTube. I think it's called like The Two-Handed Guitarist or something like that. And he shows us a lot of his pentatonic ideas, but here's one in action. It's pretty crazy, right? You can see how he's taken the good old-fashioned G minor Panasonic scale and simply dividing that up between the two hands. So the right hand is doing the high note and the left hand is doing the low note. But on top of every one of those taps, he's doing a slide up the neck. He's got that hammered on B flat from nowhere that he does the bar dip with there at the end. You'll notice to keep that clean, you're gonna have to learn how to use your first finger as kind of the skin capo, the Ed Gein special as I like to call it. I'm using that guy just to dampen the strings while I do the tapping with my free fingers on the left hand. Otherwise it would sound out with a ton of noise like that. Especially when you're tapping, the underside of your first finger is your last line of defense against string noise, so learn how to use it. The next lick I assumed was like random pick tapping going down the neck, but I was also wrong about that. Instead of pick tapping, he's using this technique where he takes the middle finger and gives a little bit of this thing. Does that remind you of anything? Yeah, that's right. Doing scratch-offs in the back of your stepmom's minivan outside of the gas station. Oh yeah. You can see I'm just muting back here with the first finger again and just flicking that string as fast as I can while I fret and slide down the neck with my left hand. That lands us inside another pentatonic tapping lick with some slides in it. This is going to be outlining the relative major of that minor pentatonic, the B-flat major pentatonic. Just that cluster of notes. So you're going to do that sliding thing, and then slide up to the 12th position on the G. How cool is that? That's so many things in a row. After you do the slide up, you got the pull off to open, the bar dips. 5th fret harmonic, change hands, give your guitar the old reach around there like we all like to do, while you bring it up to pitch. Actually, I think Steve kind of does like pick tapping on the low E, just for some additional attack. So crazy. After this, we get to the iconic main riff of the tune, which is pretty simple, but there's a really important songwriting thing you can learn from this. Check it out. So this lick is kind of the signature lick of the tune, and this can be a really powerful thing whenever you're putting a song together. Give it a signature lick. Give it a hook that only belongs in this song and could only be used in this song. Think about the way that Metallica put this lick all over like every riff in Enter Sandman, right? You hear that little burst of notes and you know what song it belongs to. That's what this lick is to turn up the radio. When you learn the verse riff of this tune, you can work on using your thumb to play bass notes while you're using your other fingers to play chord triads up top. A lot of guitar players struggle with using their thumb to play bass notes because they're just overthinking it. Your thumb is just a big dumb lever made out of meat. Just wrap it around and you're probably going to end up fretting the note the way that you want to. On top, we once again have that sound of chord triads being superimposed over a static bass note. We have a G triad, we have a C triad, we have an F triad, and then back to G. Lynch uses the tuning of his guitar to his advantage to play that really cool Van Halen-inspired lick around the harmonics at the end of the verse. Sounds like this. The G major chord, which this is all centered around, is made up of the notes G, B, D. You just happen to have a G, a B, and a D string on your guitar. So whenever we play that little cluster of harmonics on the 5th and the 12th, it sounds like a G major chord. Simple transition, but it sounds awesome. Now when they get to the chorus of the tune, we can continue learning about static bass notes over chords. Everything so far has been based around G, but the chorus goes to a tone center of E, and that's all the bass plays throughout the chorus, even though the guitar is changing chords underneath it. Check this out. Now, on the actual track, he's just playing big old power chords. and then that big sassy E sus to E major triad at the end. I think the tonality here is really weird, and it doesn't follow what you would conventionally do with a key change in a tune. Changing from this kind of G Mixolydian sound, we'll talk about the Mixolydian stuff when we get to the solo section, but going from this G Mixolydian sound to this really vague E tonality in the chorus is kind of a big leap to make harmonically. The first chords seem to have resolution around that A, so you'd think that we're in the key of A now, but then C and G are not in that key at all, and then you have this resolution around E major at the end. It's really ambiguous, but somehow it works. It just goes to show you don't always have to follow the rules when doing a key change. Sometimes doing something unexpected can make your tune way more interesting. There's a short solo after the first chorus of the tune. It's not really all that much, but it shows you how you can use that mixed major and minor tonality inside of rock music. Check this out. What I'm talking about is how we're back in the verse now, which has that very happy G major tonality, meaning it's got this major third, this B note in it. But what does he do in the solo? He uses G minor pentatonic, which has a B flat note in it. That's totally an Angus Young AC/DC trick, right? Take a progression that sounds very major and very happy and just kind of force minor pentatonic on top of it. It's just the language of rock, even though it's improper. The only other new thing we can learn in the second verse of the tune is the wardrobe choice of the vocalist. Did he just say, "I'm in a dress"? I'm not judging, I'm just asking. And now we get to the section of the song that you probably tuned into this video for, the solo. Now we once again have another big key change whenever it gets to this section of the tune. So we've been in chorus number 2, which is again around that sort of E-ish tonality, and then behind the guitar solo, it essentially takes the verse riff with its superimposed chords over a static bass note and moves it up a whole step to A. Editing chair, Uncle Ben here. That's not a guitar part on the album. That's just what I play to stand in for the synth chords when we play it live. On the record, it's more just like those chords are hit once and held, so if you want to be super accurate, just do it that way. We got triads of A major, D major, and G major, all being played under a static A bass note. This entire song, and especially the solo section, is just worship of the Mixolydian mode. There's a lot of different ways you could look at the Mixolydian scale. I recommend just thinking of it as being like the major scale, the good old do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, only take the 7th note and move it down a half step. It's like the major scale's way less uptight, more fun sibling. It's like a major scale that's wearing an airbrush t-shirt and smashing beers in the venue parking lot. The cool thing that happens whenever you construct a major scale with a flat 7 like that is that you can create different sort of chord progressions than you do with the major scale. Namely, it creates this thing where you have a major chord on the 1, a major chord on the 4, and most interestingly, a major chord on the flat 7, that new note that we came up with. So you have this really cool lift where you can have this chord, which feels like kind of home bass, as well as a major chord that sounds happy, a step down from it. Creates this really nice lift that you just don't get with the major scale. So Steve's solo is built around that A Mixolydian tonality, and he uses a ton of different ideas in here. There's some arpeggio-based things, there's some chromaticism, tons of different tapping licks. It's awesome. I want to talk about the concepts you can learn from this. If you want to learn the solo note for note with a really comprehensive breakdown, I've got a lesson for that right here on my channel. It's Weekend Wank Shop. I think it's 182 if I recall. I'll be sure to put a link to that down in the video description. Let's start off by talking about that 2 note per string ascending lick that he kicks the solo off with. We can see on that lick, he's playing this idea that goes 4-3, root flat 7, and he's just moving that in octaves. The next part is the exact same thing, just moved up an octave. And there's that 4-3 thing again there at the end. Now this idea is at first based around this A major arpeggio that we can find, root third fifth. And there he is using a bunch of those very Mixolydian sounding intervals again. The fourth, flat 7 being on display a bunch throughout there. Love that G triad with that resolution on the third of the A chord. So just a second ago I mentioned this A triad. He revisits that same position again with the next lick with some chromaticism. Love that one. We can see this idea that he's using right here. He's got root third fifth, and he's just kind of playing connect the dots between the fifth and the third using some chromaticism. Well, that's jazz in a nutshell, isn't it? Start on a good note, end on a good note, put whatever you want in between. And you can even learn a lot about using triads in your soloing right there, because do you see how he's using the root, third, and fifth of that A major chord and giving every one of them a bend up to the next note in the scale? Root goes to 2, 3 goes to 4, and then the 5 goes to 6. Outlines the sound of that A major and gives us some extra stuff in there for color. And then we have this thing. That is such a brutal one to help you out with your string skipping skills. Again, consult the full lesson I have here on my channel for the best ways to play that. But one thing that I just learned about this that makes it way, way more easier is whenever you play the first string skipping thing on the G, use your middle finger twice. That's going to be your position shift to get you down to the next part of the lick. So be sure to follow that along with the tab that I'm putting up on Patreon. Whenever you're working on string skipping licks like that, I recommend letting go of the idea that we need to have our pick strokes be as tiny as humanly possible. Let those pick strokes be kind of big. You can see when I do it that way, it not only sounds out the note that I want you to hear, but it also gets my pick up and above the next note that I've got to play. If you make little teeny tiny pick strokes like this, then you got to move the pick, then make another motion. And it just kind of can end up sabotaging you along the way. So don't be afraid to make those pick strokes a little bit bigger than you think they need to be. Okay, there's a lot we can learn from that. Let's check this out here. So first of all, these things that he's playing are arpeggios. Root, third, fifth. First one is outlining an A major triad with that extra 6 on top. Kind of giving you that cool Hawaiian major 6 sound. The next one's the same idea but on D, so it's like a D major 6. The next one, following the chords here, is G major. There's our root third fifth of G, and again a 6 on top. And then you have another inversion of that G. There's third, fifth, root. Then he steps it up back to A, and then moves it over to A again. So it's kind of like outlining A, D, G, A, all with those 6s on top. But of course, that's easier said than done. Let's talk about the techniques you can learn to make this happen. What to do with the pick, right? That's the problem that we run into here. You could stow it between your teeth if you want to, but I don't want to swallow a pick on stage. I've been there, done that, not my finest hour. And what I recommend doing here is either choosing to take the pick and hold it between your thumb and first finger like you were, and do the tapping with your middle and ring fingers like this. Your other alternative is you can stow the pick in your middle finger. See that little sleight of hand move I did right there? Just kind of like putting the pointy end at the inside of the last knuckle of your middle finger and holding it like that. This leaves your first and third fingers free to do the tapping. I I prefer just holding my pick grip like normal and letting these two fingers do the work, but your mileage may vary. And mine probably does too, depending on the day and what I had for breakfast that morning. Regardless of your pick grip, you're gonna have to keep those low strings quiet as you tap. You're gonna use the butt of your hand to mute out those low strings here on the bottom. Oh, that's not it. So you can see there how I'm using the underside of that palm there just to keep those low strings quiet. And as I move through the strings, I'm just gonna be covering up more and more of them as I go. For example, when they're on the G, I've got the E, A, and D strings firmly underneath that palm. When I get down to the high E string for those licks, I've got all the other 5 strings muted underneath my palm here. Don't be afraid to put a little bit of pressure on those strings. Really mash them down as you go through here. That way they'll stay nice and quiet. If your hand is floating above the strings when you're doing the tapping, it's just gonna generate a ton of open string noise, and you're gonna have to raid your stepmom's boudoir for a hair scrunchie or something to put across the strings. Not exactly the coolest look in my book, so learn how to manage that here with the right hand. As you're doing this, you can learn the look-ahead approach, because especially once you get to the G arpeggios, you got to do a lot of position shifts, and the fret positions can be really hard to nail down. What I recommend doing is once you land in the position that you need to be in, like let's say this one for the G, you know, you're going to play that a couple times, and when you're there, you have time to start scouting your next location. So when I'm here, my eyes are already scouting ahead to this position. That way I can land on it in time. If you wait till the last second, you'll never make it. You've always got to be looking ahead of yourself, kind of playing chess, thinking of the next move that you got to make. And then we get to the really tragic part of the solo, which is the hardest part that doesn't sound like it should be that hard, because it's not like super fast or crazy. But once you start doing these taps and bends and slides and all these position shifts, you'll realize it's a world of pain to play on the guitar. Check this out. I see a lot of people doing these all as bent taps, but there's quite a lot of slides in there. You can see it in the official music video. And I can also confirm I'm doing this right because Steve Lynch himself has commented on my post about this solo saying that I did indeed play it correctly. Thank you so much for watching, Steve. It's also very surreal and humbling knowing that you watch my stuff. That's crazy. Thanks so much, man. To get these sounding clean, it takes a lot of work. I'm using a combination of that right hand muting again here, where I'm keeping the strings dampened with the inside of my wrist and palm. And I'm also doing some left hand dampening here with the first finger, trying to keep those strings nice and quiet back here as well, because you have the potential to generate a lot of noise while you're doing these slides and taps. So whenever I do that first one right there, I'm tapping the note down up top, and I'm doing the bend with the left hand. I don't advise trying to do this with the right hand. God, that's so hard to do. I don't really have the strength to do that with my right hand. So just tap and let the left hand do the bending for you. Little slide right there. And yeah, you just gotta learn to look ahead with those things, man. There's so much going on right there. Just take it one step at a time. Take it slow. Learn those positions really, really well, and then try to start stringing them together. And the last one is so brutally stupid hard, man. You got a whole step bend happening right there with the left hand, and while you're holding that note down with your middle finger, you've got to reach up with your ring finger here to tap that 15 to get that last tap note. God, it's so hard to do. Whenever I do that ring finger note up top, you'll notice I do that pull off by flicking out. I find that whenever I've got the string bent up like that, if I flick in like I usually do with taps, it'll usually hit the G and sound that out, which is not the sound that we're looking for. So I tend to tap that one away from the face of the neck. And there's your stepmom's favorite technique on display again. Freaking amazing solo, a celebration of the Mixolydian mode and all things tapping. Incredibly creative, so melodic and so hooky, and there's so much that we can learn from it. The only other thing I want to mention here is this little overdub that happens over the last chorus of the song. Now, like I said, he'd just been playing power chords there of the E, D, A, C, G, and the E thing there at the end. But there's this little overdub that he does that kind of fleshes out the tonality of those chords a little more. Check this out. He's doing those Hendrix-style unison bends, and initially on the E to D, he's just playing roots, E and D. And then when the chords go from D to A, he plays root to D, and then this right here. Now he's playing this C sharp, which against A sounds out as a major third, making this not just sound like a power chord, it makes it sound like a major chord. Over the C to G part, he plays this, which again is root of the C, third of the G. So now this doesn't sound like a G power chord, it sounds like G major. And then lastly over the E sus to E major, he's playing that suspended fourth to the third right there to flesh out that major tonality. Give it that nice tension and release against that E tonality. It's a simple overdub, but you can see how his careful note choices there really flesh out the harmony of those chords. So there you go, guys, a breakdown on why you ought to be learning one of the most iconic tunes of the 80s, Turn Up the Radio by Autograph. It was a huge hit for the band back in the day, and then I think we have the Grand Theft Auto soundtrack to thank for resurrecting it and bringing it back to everybody's attention. I remember playing that game over at my buddy Josh's house at like 4 in the morning, and it was on like the 80s rock station or whatever on there. And I remember hearing that in the background and just being like, dude, I can't concentrate on, hijacking this car right now. There's this bitchin' guitar solo going on. I gotta listen to that. Really awesome tune, so fun to play, and there's so much we can learn from it. But let me know down in the comments section what song you think every guitar player should learn, and maybe we'll cover that on the next installment of this series. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for notifications every time I upload a new slice of fried gold. And if you want to get even more out of this video, check out that extended and ad-free cut, as well as hundreds of other exclusive bonus posts over on that Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Be sure to head on over there and grab the completely free public access tabs to the parts in this song, that we can play along with it a little bit more better. As you go through your week, I want you guys to think about something awesome that somebody did for you, something that was small. They probably didn't even think about it. Maybe they just bought you a cup of coffee or complimented your shirt that day or whatever, but it really brought you up and made your day, made your week, made your month, whatever. Think about doing that for somebody else this week. You never know what the smallest act of kindness can do for somebody to change their day, change their life, whatever. So as you go through your week, try to be awesome to each other. It's up to us to make this world a better place. Now get away from the computer machine, grab that rock guitar, and start tapping. Let's click it. More pick it.